south of us along the Olentangy River, east bank of the Olentangy. And actually, I'm Eli Long II. My grandfather is Eli Long. I can tell you a little bit about us. We came from Pennsylvania originally. We're over there in southwestern Pennsylvania, Greene County, over there near Waynesburg. And we had a farm, a horse farm. Going way back, my grandfather, Eli, he was in the Civil War. And when he came home from the Civil War, he was talking to my great-grandfather, his dad. They decided to really get into the horse business. Thoroughbred horses. I mean racing horses. And they had the finest racing horse farm of thoroughbreds in that part of Pennsylvania. But then that changed somewhat. Now, Eli's father, or son, I'm sorry, was A.C. Albert Stanley, and everybody called him Bert. And Bert had some kids, of which I'm one of them. I'm Eli, my brother Ross, had a brother Alan, had a sister Sarah, and we're all into horses. In fact, it changed somewhat when my brother Ross one time said to my dad, he said, you know, I know we got the thoroughbreds, but my horse is a standard bred. I have a saddle horse, a show horse, and I want to take it down to the county fair and show it. And that's just what he did. My dad said, fine, take it down. 7 miles down the road. I was 8 years, he was 8 years old when he did that. Took it to the fair. When he comes back, he couldn't believe it. He won the whole thing. We thought, you know, maybe we better get into standard breds. And we did. And we had a fine standard bred horse farm. It had a name, and the way it got its name was from my father. Actually, he's the one who named it. And that came about when one day he went down in the morning to feed the horses. And you know, the stalls, they had a whole row of stalls, and they all had their heads stuck out through that top half of the stall, looking down at him. And of course, they're waiting for their morning breakfast. And so he noticed each one of them had a mark right in the middle of their forehead. White mark, shaped like a star. From that time on, they called it the White Star Farm. That carried on, you know, in 1901. At that time, they had a horse by the name of Montgomery Boy. Finest horse that the farm ever produced. And I'll tell you what, in 1906, they sent that horse all the way over from Pennsylvania to the Ohio State Fair. Biggest fair anywhere around. And it had many dozens and dozens of horses. It won it. Montgomery Boy won the grand champion. So then they began in by 1908, they were sending that horse all around the country, winning show after show. Ended up in Chicago at the Chicago International. And there it won Reserve Grand Champion of the world.
Jeez.
And I'll tell you what, we had ourselves a horse. And it was a fine breeding horse too. And so there have been many champions bred from that horse. Well, you know, I said we moved over here though in 1910 from Pennsylvania. Bought 430 acres down along the Olentangy River, east bank, down there, and of course we carried the name with us, the White Star Farm. That's what we called it. We always maintained 100 horses or a few more at all times on the farm. But we don't just have horses. We have a herd of Hereford cattle. We have a dairy herd of dairy cows, Guernseys, and I've decided it's time for us to get a herd of sheep. We need a good herd of sheep down there. By the way, the land we got down there, we came to find out that that land was the farm or the land where the very first settler in this county moved to, Nathan Carpenter and his family. Moved there in 1801. They lived there on that land right there where we live. Well, you know, the Great War came along, and I did my duty to my country and entered into this worldwide war. And I entered into the Army Air Corps. I learned to fly a plane. I was getting pretty darn good at it. But then they found out I knew how to handle horses. And in fact, they also found out I knew how to play the game of polo. They sent me to Texas. And I did my duty all through the war of playing for the Army polo team. Well, anyway, by God's good grace, I then was able to come back home. And that farm continued. Still continues today. I say it's the finest farm in all the state of Ohio as far as that. Of course, Kentucky. They have the horse farms. And that's really because there aren't that many horse farms in Ohio, because the land itself, the ground around here, is really good for planting crops. So rich soil in Ohio. Down in Kentucky, not as good for growing crops. They can do fine pastures, so they have horse farms.